My mind literally went straight to that.
What's the practice line? Give me your acorn.
Corn.
I'm so proud of you guys.
I love that movie.
So, we'll get all formal-ish. Hi, welcome to podcast yet to be named.
Name pending.
Yeah, right. My name is Mackenzie Bannister, and I am here with my pal Zoe. She is one of the most intentional learners I've ever met, which is honestly the highest compliment I could give. She and I have always fed each other's thirst for knowledge, especially in the realm of parenting and all things surrounding that. She currently works with Wild Beginnings Nature School, and I'd love for you to tell us just a little bit about Wild Beginnings before we dive in.
So Wild Beginnings is a nature immersion school. We start off with children as young as 6 months and as old as 7 years. And we start off with our babies class, which is Montessori, and then we get to our Caregiver and Me class, which is very Waldorf. And it goes from Waldorf throughout the rest of the classes. And if you're not familiar with Waldorf, it's very child-led and very encouraging risky play and
fostering curiosity, creativity.
Mm-hmm. And that's what we do. And a lot of parents today just aren't familiar with that. And so a lot of our job, especially in Caregiver and Me, is to help parents be comfortable with establishing that in their families and outside of the classroom.
Yeah.
And usually when families start off in our babies class, it just naturally they go to our Caregiver and Me and then preschool. And this year we had a kindergarten, so...
No way!
Yeah, we did.
Oh, cute! That's awesome. And Wild Beginnings is in Idaho, Treasure Valley area.
Treasure Valley, but we're also in Colorado, North Carolina, and New York. And currently
New York,
spreading.
too?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's awesome. Okay. Very cool. So plug for Wild Beginnings and nature school in general. It's all really, really awesome. Yeah, we just wanted to have a casual conversation about parenting. I've come actually from a very typical home. You not so much.
Yeah. Very.
But we were both raised with really common basic parenting practices.
Yeah, I'd say so.
The whole spare the rod and you spoil the child
Yes.
ideology. Yeah. What are some common parenting misconceptions you feel or that you see even in your classes or in your childhood?
Okay, so today we do a lot of events for the community, and there's this one dad there who he wasn't addressing his 4-year-old's needs and kept saying, "You're fine, it's all right."
The 4-year-old was having a meltdown.
Yes, consistent meltdowns.
Yeah.
And all he needed was someone to hear what he needed to say. And Carissa, the amazing example that she is, would walk up to him and say, "Well, what's the matter?" And he just kept crying, and she gave him a second. And then she'd say, "Well, do you need a hug?" And he'd say, "No.
No.
But I do need this, this, and this, and this." And
wow, he named his needs.
He named his needs. And ultimately, he just wanted to play. He wanted to play with the other kids. Yeah. And she's like, "Okay, well, how about some of them are we stacked rocks." And he's like, "Well, can I try that?" And she was like, "Well, yeah, just walk up and say, 'Hey, can I play with you?'" And that's what he did. And all the other kids were like, "Yeah, come and play."
Yeah.
And so that's what we did. And he calmed down. And so I would say that's what I see a lot. It happens in my family still. Not necessarily with me and my girls, because I'm a little bit more... There's more than just whining. There's an unmet need that they need addressed. And so...
It's hard to break cycles and habits.
When I'm really tired, it's I forget. But then I feel guilty at the end of the day. I'm like, dang it.
Well, because you know better. You know? And when we know better, we do better in theory.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. But I heard one time that our first response is how we grew up. And our second response is... what we learned, what we know now. And that second response is what defines us. Yeah. And that's your second response is always to see the child behind the behavior, to see the need behind the behavior.
Because they're not bad kids, and something.
And they're not bad parents either that are doing this.
No.
That dad, I'm sure he wanted his child to have a good time. Otherwise, he wouldn't be at Wild Beginnings. But he just didn't know. He's been taught a specific way in how to
address
a
needs.
child's behavior, not
Yeah.
even their needs, you know?
Mm-hmm.
In Unconditional Parenting with Alfie Kohn, he talks about how in America we have this fallacy that, permissive parenting is rampant. We're having these kids get away with everything. And that feeds implementing all these controlling practices in order to control behavior. And that's just more work in the long run.
Yeah, when you can just establish that trust. Because sometimes my oldest will say, "Mom, you're so mean," and I correct her and I say, "No, I'm being a mom. I'm a mom first, and you did something that wasn't okay." So the consequence to that is, I mean, usually I try really hard to stick to
something related
to what she did. Depending on what it is, I give her options.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense to you.
100% does. You offer autonomy where you can.
Yeah, depending on what it is.
And you try to channel them a healthy place, a safe, healthy learning place.
Because I understand when she's too tired, like I have to remind myself, how about we ease up a little bit on
you give
manners.
her grace just like you want grace.
Yeah.
I feel like when kids are tired and acting up,
they're just like we are, right?
Just like us, exactly. We have
Hangry
crappy days where we come home from work or whatever activity we've been working on all day, and we're just feeling like crap. And we tell our partner or our kids, we say, "Mama needs a minute." And when kids are overstimulated, when they're burnt out and they have a meltdown, we tell them, "Quit acting up."
Yeah, we tell them they're bad.
Get over it.
When they're not bad. They
don't know any different. They have really big feelings that they're not familiar with.
No.
And we're familiar with them, and we still have trouble coping with them. I think we forget that children are little beings with very valid perspectives who are worthy of being respected. You know? We expect that respect.
Yeah.
So why not offer it to them as well?
Something I remind my husband is, because he's a little bit more strict than I am. I try not to have expectations for people, because that leads for that's like the highway to disappointment, you know. But
and a miscommunication too.
Yes, a huge miscommunication. But the only thing I really like, if I were to expect things from my kids, is to say please and thank you. They don't like what someone says, try to say no thanks and walk away. You know, try to end it kind. And at the playgroup, one of these sisters were fighting. They were hitting each other. And Ivy goes, "Stop it. Stop it right now." And I said, "Ivy, you let her, their mommy's right here. Her mommy can deal with it. Do you like it when Esther hits you?" And she goes, "No, Mommy." And I said, "Okay. Do you like when you watch them hit?" And she goes, "No." I said, "Okay. Do you think we could do that at home and not hit?" She goes, she didn't know what to say. She just like...
Yeah, kids understand a lot more than how we were even raised to believe.
Oh,
or we give credit. Exactly.
Like I think 6-month-olds really don't understand really what's happening if they're hitting or biting. But 2-year-olds get what they're doing. They're frustrated. They can't say it, so
they
it
can't
comes
say
out.
it. They have these big feelings. Children have these big needs, and they, at different stages, they communicate them in different ways. That's what these behaviors are. Like, any behavior is a reflection of a deep unmet need.
Yeah.
For example, if my son, my 5-year-old, were at a Texas Roadhouse, and he's had a long day, and we're waiting forever to bring him his dadgum mac and cheese, and he has a meltdown. And my husband, his first reaction is to say, "You're fine," because he knows the food's coming. He's been here before.
But Joshua doesn't.
He doesn't.
Yeah.
No. He has a need for food, first of all, but his deep and unmet need is a need for stability and for security.
Yes.
He cannot see the food. He doesn't understand that it's coming. So I used a conscious discipline technique where I saw him. I was like, it is so hard to wait for our food to come. I can see that you're super upset, you're hungry, you're tired, and you're sad. I would like to calm down together. Would you like to do pretzel breathing or balloon breathing? And so balloon breathing is when they have their head up here and they go, and then pretzel breathing, it's more complicated. And of course it's his favorite, and I can hardly ever get it right. You cross your wrists and you twist your hands and you clasp them and then you do this and then you breathe.
And then you breathe.
Yeah. And then we connected again, and I was like, okay, I'm so glad you feel a little bit better now. I can see that you're a little bit more relaxed. We're a little more centered. Food is coming very soon, and we need to wait for it. Would you like to wait by coloring, or would you like to wait by counting? Because he's super into counting now. So we ended up counting to, I think, 337.
Wow. 337.
He tested me, man. As far as unlearning ingrained habits, especially as a parent, it takes a huge perspective shift.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and how we see our kiddos. From saying, like, oh, you're just needy attention hose.
You're just manipulative.
Manipulative,
I
yeah.
hate it when people say that. Lots of different people who have different perspectives, different parts of the brain that they specifically talk about, or different types of parenting, and from old school to modern practices. Like, it's not just one party. It's kind of full circle of understanding. Like,
there's so many different parts.
And your kids get older, you have to change it up because they change.
Oh, big time. And in this early stage that we're living in, like, how old's Esther?
She's almost 5.
Yeah, okay. Josh just turned 5. Those are our oldest.
Mm-hmm.
Ivy's 2.
2, yeah.
Yeah, and Jessie is 15, 16 months. Yikes. In this age and stage,
they just come.
There's a couple different ways to put it. So, right brain is emotional and more connected to body's response. And the left brain super logical and into patterns and whatnot, but they're living in their right brain. Another way to put it is like downstairs and upstairs.
Yeah.
Upstairs is logic, downstairs is survival state. And you're not gonna jump from downstairs to upstairs.
No.
Very easy.
It takes time.
It has to be a coping process that they're not familiar with. They haven't walked those steps enough to understand how to get there the way we do, you know? And even then, we kind of suck at it.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Like, honestly, that's a whole nother aside, but I'm going there anyway. As we give our kids grace, we got to give ourselves grace, too.
Oh, my gosh, for
Because
real.
Esther is learning how to be a 4-year-old for the very first time. You are also learning how to be the mother of a 4-year-old for the very first time. And when Ivy becomes 4 years old, you'll be learning how to become a mother of a 4-year-old Ivy for the first time. Yeah. Like, literally, this is our first time being mothers on July 11th, 2022. We're learning literally every day. There's so many different factors of every day and every stage that we just have to give ourselves grace and adapt and learn, you know?
Oh, yeah.
It's okay. It's okay not to be okay. Anyway, so you're a huge proponent of, like, gentle parenting, respectful parenting.
So I grew up in a single mother household, and my grandma was very present. And so was my grandpa, not really. He was kind of just, like, there. But typically my mom was very hot-headed. And she disciplined with her fist a lot. Not, like, literally.
Not closed fist,
but open fist. Yeah. A lot of spanking. She'd buy tools for spanking.
Oof.
Like wooden spoons from the dollar store type stuff.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah, and like...
Still not great.
Like metal hangers. Like, I have specific memories of those. And that wasn't my desire for my kids at all. And so, I mean, there's sometimes where I get triggered because they have really big feelings, and I realize, oh, this is an unmet need in me. It's okay for me to feel triggered, but it's also important for me to be stable, and I can address my stuff as long as I do it. Like, as long as I do it later, I'm starting to be more conscious of that. I don't believe in hitting, because it just scares children a lot. Like, I am pretty sure I have I have a lot of trauma that I need to address because of it, because I have specific memories. I mean, it would be different if it was, a lot of the time they were for dumb things, and I understand sometimes kids are unreasonable, you know.
Sure, but how is hitting reasonable?
Yeah, like, I didn't do anything, I didn't hit anyone to be hit back, you know what I mean? So, I've been changing that in my family. It's been a lot more positive and a lot of healing, because like, the number one thought I have throughout the day is be the mom that you wanted when you were little. And that helps me to project that and give that to my kids, and in return I feel like it's also healing that little part of me that never received that as a kid.
Yeah,
So
healing your inner child.
yeah.
Oh, that's so wholesome. Matt has a perspective trick kind of similar to that. He kind of does a zoom out thing, but he, instead of zooming backwards the way you do, he zooms forwards and says, like, okay, I'm an 80-year-old farter, like, looking back on it, and I have the opportunity to relive this day. And that just snaps him into place. But honestly, reality gives us a lot of grace in that studies have shown, depending on the age, kiddos, honestly, they really just need a minimum of like 7 minutes of focused, undivided attention to really thrive. 7 minutes a day just absolutely changes their life. And that's so bedtime. Minimum.
Yeah.
You know? Easy beer, easy beautiful. Easier said than done, but...
oh my gosh.
So I'm kind of unofficially titling this particular episode like the myth of behavior management. And I feel like that's kind of an assumption between us, is behavior management isn't so much the name of the game as it is teaching reasoning.
Yeah, I mean,
and respecting our children.
Daily practices. Like, I've noticed when I stop, like, I mean, every day my parenting kind of shifts depending on where they're at and where I am too, you know. And I've noticed, we just went to a family event and my kids were so polite. They weren't, there weren't any outbursts, there weren't any fighting amongst each other. I know, I was like, is this real? And I realized, like, oh, it's because at home we try really hard to teach them. Like if Esther does something she doesn't want Ivy to do, I say, well, Esther, did you tell her what your needs were? And she'll say, no, I just was screaming. And I said, okay, how about you say, Ivy, please stop. Honest. And she goes, oh, yeah, I can say that. And Ivy, she's starting to talk and form sentences. So
that's
sometimes
not a neural pathway that's been developed.
No, so we practice lots of repetition, and some days repetition is really hard.
Repetition's a mother.
When Ivy says please and thank you, she gets rewarded instantly every single time. And so, she saw it at our family event. She said please, and then she said thank you, and was rewarded instantly.
Yeah, people loved it.
Yes, she was very, very respectful and would say no thank you. Sometimes it came out as a scream, but like at least she said no thank you. It could have been way worse. She didn't try to take revenge instantly when someone hit her. It was more like just taking in what was happening versus reacting really quick. And I feel like it's because our daily practices are focused on addressing their needs and helping them feel safe and grounded. And
whereas with something like spanking, that's not so much focused on meeting their needs. It's focused on correcting behavior there and now. Instant results. Yeah. But that doesn't teach the child, oh, I shouldn't hit my friend, or I shouldn't have spilled that cereal all over the floor because I wanted to see what it was like to pour something. Yeah. It teaches them it's okay to hit when you're in control. Yeah. And it doesn't teach them how to work through the big feelings that come after. It just teaches them to submit and to adapt in order to avoid being hit. They don't learn the reasons why they should practice impulse control or clean up their mess, and anything like that. You know, it just teaches them power equals coercion. Yeah. Another point in Unconditional Parenting by Alfie Kohn is that they need to be loved. That is their primary deep need. And a problem with modern parenting tactics like spanking, timeouts, or bribery is that teaches love is conditional. Yeah. I love you when you behave. I don't love you when you misbehave. I isolate you when you misbehave.
Well, they immediately think, well, I'm bad. I'm just a bad kid. When that's not true. They're inherently good.
Oh my gosh. The phrase that I am trying to work out of my vocabulary is, why'd you do that? That wasn't kind. I'm attributing a negative intention or a negative motivation to them. Like, that's the same as me saying, why are you manipulative? Like, that's still wrong, even if my intention is good and I'm trying to teach kindness. That's not, like, there's no malintent. There's just deep unmet needs and attempts at communicating for the most part. And where was I going with that? Yeah, so I kind of wanted to walk through these different thoughts surrounding specifically like misbehavior and meltdowns. I want to talk about understanding meltdowns, which we kind of talked about, right?
Yeah.
Like the deep unmet needs are driving these, what we perceive as negative behaviors.
Yeah.
And then there's lots of ways to mitigate the meltdowns, including getting on their eye level and trying to figure out like what's going on, and to treat them with respect and offer autonomy where we can. Like in preschool classes at the Head Start program I work at, obviously there's a set schedule we have to follow, and there's a class that each individual has to be a part of and adhere to, right? But there's still autonomy to offer within even going from class to the bathroom.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we're all going to the bathroom now, we're taking a bathroom break. Do you want to walk to the bathroom, or do you want to skip to the bathroom? And so you offer choices where you can. That doesn't mean it's a free-for-all.
No.
That's another big thing about The Whole Brain Child by, I wrote it down, Daniel Siegel and Tina Payne Bryson. I don't know if you've...
Yeah, I'm familiar with that.
Yeah,
we talk
The
about
Whole
it,
Brain Child.
Well, beginnings. Yeah, a lot of people that are hired aren't necessarily, like, psychologists of children,
right,
you know,
no.
we're just...
You don't pay enough to hire psychologists.
No,
you can't.
No. But we're very good people who love our kids, and we love other kids, so of course we're going to read up on stuff to make us better. And what I love about giving autonomy is that it wasn't there when I was a kid. It was always, you have one choice. It's either my way or the highway, or it was, you're actually a bad kid because you did A, B, and C. I remember being a kid, like, having memories as young as 4, thinking, like, all I did was want to go outside, so you locked the door,
gosh.
so I know how to unlock the window and crawl out. Like, how was that bad? You didn't tell me that was a boundary that I needed, and you didn't explain it to me that wasn't something that I couldn't do. I just knew I needed to be outside, and you locked the door, so I found a way.
Oh, my least
type of a thing, you know.
My least favorite phrase and most scarring on my childhood was, "Don't talk back to me."
Oh, yeah.
When you're not trying to be disrespectful,
you're just trying to explain,
you don't know how to be that.
Yeah.
Exactly. You want to talk through your reasoning because you think you're fairly logical. Just trying to learn to be a parent and communicate with our kiddos in a respectful dialogue. That has been a really huge learning curve for me. And engaging in a respectful dialogue doesn't mean balls to the wall, anything goes.
Yeah.
It's about creating boundaries and structure and having follow through.
Oh, yeah.
All while seeing the child and respecting that child.
Because I'll find children, they kind of want to see that follow through. Like, they'll keep doing it to see, like, are you serious? Are you really, like, at least I see that with my kids.
And that's not button pushing.
No, it's just their nature.
Testing boundaries. Like, are these boundaries really established? You know?
Is it okay for me to still tipping my cup over, even though you tell me not to? Because I do it. Like, my 2-year-old does that all the time, and she just does it because she knows.
Yeah.
Like, she likes the reaction that she gets from everyone. So now it's, you take your drink, we put it on the counter where you can't get it.
Right.
Until you learn that it's okay to have our cup next to us and not have to put our hand in it or food in it or dump it over. So she can't. She wants to be like everyone else and have her cup with us, but it's like, no, like, you can't because you play with it, and we've already said that's not okay.
Yeah.
And
she doesn't have the impulse control yet.
That we do. She's more like, oh, this is fun. I'm just going to do it.
And you could practice that self-control with her in space that's not so chaotic. You know, to have her practice self-control with a cup at a full family dinner, she's going to get a bunch of stuff wet if you're having her practice with her cup at, like, her own lunchtime. Like, and getting her used to that's totally different. And plus, on a deep level, she appreciates the structure.
Yeah.
And she appreciates you meeting her at her developmental level and at her needs.
Yeah. And I feel like she feels safe. And because I think about this a lot. I mean, just something I think
you're kind of living this world. Yeah.
Is that I don't feel like I felt safe a lot as a kid. Like, my mom was she partied a lot. And the only person I felt safe with really was my grandma, who was very much more structural. Yeah, she was kind of strict, but she kind of regretted the way she parented her kids. Because, I mean, she came from a long line of very, very, very respect your elders, very old school Latino. So It was very, you respect your elders, you don't tell me no, or the only consequence is being spanked. She didn't spank us, luckily. She was able to have a conversation with me and say, well, why'd you do that? And I'd tell her why, and then she'd say, well, it still wasn't okay. And I'd have to, my consequence usually was, I hated it, was not going outside. And but I understood
that wasn't always related to
so that's why I've changed that as a parent now. But I would be like, okay, I understand why she did it, doesn't mean I have to like it, like and I was
there's a good, better, best, you know, holding outside is better,
but it was different than what she did with her kids. A lot of
so she was still growing.
Discipline. Yes, because she didn't like it when she saw my mom do the same thing to us that she did to her kids. Like, it killed her.
That was like a wake up for her.
Yes, it was. And she told me that I remember being really little, having her tell me that, and I was like, I get, what? And now as a parent, like, I get it, but like as a kid, I'm like, oh, I don't like it when mom hits me either, but she just does.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like,
that's your reality.
normal.
Kids don't know to question their reality.
No, they're just like,
you just don't know what you don't know.
They just take it for what it is, you know. So it's interesting, and I don't know. I hope someday if they ask me, I'll be like, oh, yeah, well, I mean, sometimes I'll tell my kids, like, oh, well, my mom wasn't very nice. And they're like, well, what do you mean? And I'll say, well, my mom didn't understand how big my feelings were. And she didn't have the time to sit with me like I'm sitting with you. And my 4-year-old will go, oh.
You're planting seeds.
Yeah.
And that's all we're doing at this age, is just planting seeds. And you mentioned a key word. So your grandma would, your grandma, right?
Yeah, my grandma.
She would keep you from going outside, and you called it consequence, but I think of that as a punishment.
Yeah, it kind of
because it wasn't connected to whatever the misdeed was, right? It was a means to control your behavior with great intentions, but it was still used as a tool to control your behavior. Punishments and bribery, it's just, two sides of the same coin. And Conscious Discipline by Dr. Becky Bailey, she emphasizes natural consequences and logical consequences. Natural consequences are what happen when we don't intervene at all.
Yeah.
And at Head Start, when we have toddlers or preschoolers trying to socialize with each other, wherever it is safe, we try to let them work out their conflicts alone. And sometimes that means getting really heightened and yelling at one another. When it's not safe, obviously we need to intervene and start talking through, okay, if you continue this behavior, this logical consequence is going to take place. I'm going to need to move you to a different practice center so that I can keep our class rules and you can stay safe and your friend can stay safe, There's 7 different basic discipline skills in conscious discipline. And the 7th one, and probably the hardest one, is consequences.
Oh, yeah.
And we talk through, we see a misbehavior, and in logical consequences where we absolutely have to intervene, the name of the game is less intervention, the better.
Yeah.
So it's a whole sitting down with them, okay, what you are doing with your friend is not safe. We don't attribute motivation to it. We don't say that wasn't kind or that was mean. That was not safe. If you continue to try to throw those toys, we will need to move you to a different practice center. We'll need to move you away. We don't dare do timeout because isolating is not the way to help them go through their feelings. I can tell you're very frustrated. Hurting people is not the way to go about dealing with your feelings. We can calm down together and you can resume playing, or should you decide to keep hitting, we'll need to move you to a different practice center. You decide. Tell me, can you tell me what I just said? And, we talk through, it's a dialogue. And
I feel like that also helps with their inner voice, like them to figure out, maybe this isn't safe for me too. Maybe I could change what I'm doing.
Not only that, but they're starting to recognize, I was frustrated. That's why I was doing that. Just the power that you give a child by naming their emotion is incredible. That's another thing about the whole brain child, is the empowering them to tell their story, to walk them through, especially if it's something that triggers them, or you can that's a really great way to connect the right brain and the left brain. The memories attached to emotions are way easier to remember. And in recalling those memories, or even telling the story of an immediate incident, you're recalling details, right? So that's engaging the left brain and doing this whole integrated approach. And just becoming aware of what's on the inside, that's great for kids and adults. I cannot tell you how much of a relief it was to just hear the words, "Oh, you have anxiety." That didn't take it away, but I had a name for what I was feeling.
Yeah.
And that's just so centric, you know, on a big picture. In the moment, or my partner will look at me and say, "Hey, you seem tense." Oh, yeah, I am. Haven't really stopped to evaluate. I've been going at 100 miles an hour. Anyway, behavior management is a total myth. Parenting is just a lot of picking our battles.
Oh my gosh.
Honestly, we kind of do this dance as educators, as parents. We're like, oh, this is okay. Now I don't. Okay, now I really need to step in there and do something. Just allowing our children to develop curiosity and name their feelings and work through these big feelings and just treat them with respect, man. Help them calm themselves down. In conscious discipline, there's this thing, a process called DNA. Describe. It's kind of like what I was describing with the consequences thing. It's you're upset. I can see you crying, and your hands are all balled up. You seem upset, right? And then that sounds cheesy, but to a kid, that's everything. They don't understand. And then the naming, you seem upset. Acknowledge. It's really frustrating when you can't have lunch when you want lunch. That really sucks. I know the feeling, and it is not fun.
Yeah, you're validating.
Exactly. How many times do we want that as adults?
Every day.
After acknowledging it and connecting with them and calming with them, giving them a chance to breathe and after we connect with them and name their feelings, that's another way that we engage, bring the right brain over to their left brain. Downstairs brain up to their upstairs brain by naming those feelings and taking a deep breath.
Well, lately, Esther, she'll say, "I'm so angry right now." She can, because we talk about our feeling, we've done that since she was, I want to say, when she was 3, we really started, naming what she was feeling, not just, the normal ones, but really, I printed out a sheet, and we'd, if she was angry and she can't, tell me, or, what she's feeling, she couldn't tell me, we'd look at the sheet, and she'd
visual aids rock.
Yes, and so... now she just says, "Oh, I'm so angry." And I say, "Well, do we need to go somewhere else so you can feel that anger? So who are you angry at?" And usually, 99% of the time, it's her sister. And I'll say, "Okay, is that anger going to hurt her?" And she'll say, "Well, yeah, because I'm so angry." And I say, "Okay, how about we go somewhere else?" And we express anger, because it's okay to be angry. But we cross the line when we hurt someone or ourselves. And that's when she, it clicks for her, oh, my feelings are valid.
Healthy ways to cope through her feelings.
Yeah, so I, try to help her validate her feelings. Yeah, she just wanted to see how you would act, and I'll talk to her, but how can we help you resolve these feelings? Because I don't want her to hold on to them and,
Yeah, that's huge, because we have big picture. We have the benefit of hindsight, foresight, whatnot. We can see this is just a moment in her life.
But for them, that moment's everything.
It's huge, and
everything.
The fact that you sat down with her and worked her through that instead of saying you're fine.
Yeah,
it's gonna be fine.
Yeah,
and trying to move her past it,
or just spanking her because she's angry. Because that's not gonna solve anything. It's not gonna solve anything at all. And
sure, spanking takes way less time.
Oh yeah, of course.
In the short term. But when you sit down with her and talk her through her feelings, you're building neural pathways that
positive ones that she can turn to and feel confident with.
Positive coping skills.
I didn't have that when I was a kid. I was just spanked, or I was just put in the corner, or I was shouted at, or something, something like that. So I was actually thinking last night in preparation to this, what was something, if my mom could have done anything, one thing that was actually positive in my childhood, I would have appreciated if she sat me down and said, "Hey, what you did wasn't okay. Your feelings are valid. They're 100% valid, but the way you treated that person, the way you treated me wasn't okay.
Yeah.
That's when you cross the line. And, like, I would have at least anything that she could have done, like, that would have been one thing that I wish she would have helped me with. Because I myself have been struggling a lot with confidence, with a lot of anxiety.
Big time.
And I realized, it's because there were a lot of neural pathways created that weren't positive.
Yeah.
And
you developed negative coping skills, and
yes.
and those negative coping skills, instead of going outward, turned inward.
Yes. And it's like, now as a parent, like, yeah, I realize she's just doing her best. Yeah, and I forgive her or whatever. But it's like, wait.
Forgiving doesn't mean you have to decide she was right.
No, and she's not right.
No.
So it's like, okay, what can I teach my kids that I don't want them to inherit? Because they literally do everything I do. Not necessarily what their dad does. I'm with them 24/7.
Right.
You know, like, they go to work with me. They see the way I communicate with other children, other parents. And then we go home and I have all these insecurities. I promotion, and I'm, like, having a lot of, like, anxiety and what's it called when you're, like,
Insecurity?
I guess insecurity, but also, like,
imposter syndrome.
Yes, imposter syndrome. Like, oh my gosh, I'm not qualified to be here. I don't have as much schooling as yada yada yada. When it's like, wait, life experiences brought me here because I am actually really good at talking to people, and I'm really good at connecting and helping people feel safe and having them tell me, like,
yeah, imagine your daughter
experiencing.
growing up, being in your shoes, and watching your daughter say, I don't deserve this thing that I worked so hard for.
Yeah, that's not true when she really has worked really hard for. So I've been trying really hard to, like, rewire my brain for that, and helping them, prepare them, because when they move out, they're gonna have to use those tools. Yeah. It's not gonna be like, I don't want to enable them. Like, I see so much enabling every day. I want them to be strong as hell. I don't want people to take advantage of them, and they're going to have to learn. There's things that I can't shield them from as much as I want to.
Well, you have the big picture in mind. You're not thinking of creating valuable little minions who are as little inconvenience as possible in the here and now. You are molding them to be responsible, capable humans.
Yeah. And having them be able to live life on their own, to be independent. And then, of course, I would be there to support them and, like, actually support them. Like, if they want to be rocket scientists, by all means, you can be a rocket scientist. If you want to be A, B, and C, like, cool, But, like, I don't want to be, like, guilt them into doing something that they know isn't right for them. Having them actually work for something to get there and seeing that and giving them confidence even though they fail, like, it's so worth it.
Because in failing we learn our greatest lessons.
Oh yeah.
And it's so hard sometimes to watch our kiddos, depending on their age, like struggle with maybe feeding the dog or even putting on their pants. But they need to struggle with that so they can put on their own pants, so that they can take responsibility and work with it. I want to, like, kind of end on maybe a fun, silly parenting or child story that happened recently. For me, my son, he noticed at my screensaver was a picture of Jesse, and I was like, oh, and I have a picture of you too. It's on my homepage, and showed him that picture. He asked for my phone. He's like, can I please have your phone? He's like, okay, say cheese. He takes a picture of me, and it was technically a video, but he took a picture of me, and he says, can you put this on your phone now? Like, you need a picture of you on your screen.
That's so sweet.
So
did it make you want to cry?
Yeah. It also turned out to be a decent picture of me. So that was icing on the cake. But.
Oh, kids are so thoughtful. Something Esther does every time she goes outside is she'll pick a flower, she'll find a special rock, and she'll bring them to me. And I always put them on I save everything. So if if I'm a pack rat at anything, it's little dumb things like that, which I'll put in a box. Like, I save all their pictures.
That's
and
a wholesome
put the date
pack
on there.
rat, though.
Yeah. I don't hoard my clothes, but I'll hoard those little memories. Because they're not going to be that little very often. Like, anytime she's outside, she'll pick, like, a small bouquet for me, or one specific flower that she had to get, or, like, a specific rock.
Yeah.
And I'll just keep them.
That's so wholesome. I love it. Thank you so much for doing my first ever podcast with me.
You're welcome.
Ya finito! Woo! Hi, Mackenzie here. Thank you so much for watching this episode on the myth of behavior management. I wanted to talk about the 3 different elements of behavior management surrounding meltdowns specifically. First is understanding meltdowns and why they happen. Understanding these meltdowns by accounting for their perspective and for their deep unmet needs that their behaviors may be trying to communicate is a really great first step at mitigating those meltdowns. We also need to mitigate meltdowns. In order to do that, you need to get on their eye level. You need to give them choices wherever possible. We are going to go to a restaurant in 5 minutes. Would you like to put on your blue shoes or your green shoes? We are going to go inside from outside now. Would you like to walk there? Would you like to skip? We need to do homework now. Would you like to use the red pencil or the blue pencil? They have so little control over their lives in this stage, and any control you can offer them is a gift that they appreciate. And we mitigate those meltdowns by, again, getting on their eye level and respecting them and seeing to their need for autonomy, especially, as well as their need to be loved, which should not be hinged on their behavior. Finally, in order to manage meltdowns, we can describe what we see, we can name their feeling, we acknowledge that their feeling is valid, and then we walk them through calming. We take them to a safe place. We breathe with them. And then we walk through solutions together. Again, we validate and we talk through why their negative behavior wasn't safe or what they can do to improve their situation, and we move forward together. It's all about a collaborative process where we work with our kiddos and to do our best together. If you have feedback or thoughts on this topic, I would love to hear from you. If you have feedback or thoughts on my backyard, I do not want to hear them from you because it is a major work in progress. I am recovering white trash in lower middle class, and my yard reflects it, more or less. Thank you for watching, and if you haven't watched my video on home management or my video on relationship management, I really recommend those. And I do home management, especially focused on financing with Idaho Central Credit Union. Not sponsored, just motivated to help y'all out. Have a great day.